Welcome aboard. This is the Miles to Go podcast. And now here's your host, Ed Pizza.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Miles to Go podcast. This is version 2 of our recording as the first one got eaten up by the internet. Mr. Kerr and I are going to give it a second try. Nothing like the wonders of modern technology, Mr. Kerr. It's good to see you again.
Well, I hope Jeremiah still uses some of that banter. It was Class A, solid banter in the round one. So let's fire that over there. We covered Ed playing basketball, which I didn't know, going to high school in the 1980s when I was born. Like, that's all good stuff, man.
Let's hope it survives. We can talk about it again if you want.
Now we'll just fire in. Let's fire in there. We got a lot of topics to cover today.
All right, so here's my question for you, though. Did you happen to watch the outtakes after the end of the credits from last week's show?
I did not. I did not.
You should really do it. You should really do
I go on
that.
YouTube. I see what it looks like. I get angry that I still look like this. I hit the like button, and then I go and I always listen to it when I'm either working out or driving to the airport. So I'm a podcast guy.
So when you have time, you should go look, because for those that didn't quite hit the button and fast forward all the way to the end, last week, Mr. Kerr had a personal situation arise in the middle of the episode, and Jeremiah did an excellent job splicing together the video, so nobody even knew that Mr. Kerr had a break. But while Mr. Kerr was away, the cameras were still rolling, and so I serenaded you, Mr. Kerr, during that time that you were away, and Jeremiah chose to use those as the outtakes after the credits rolled on the audio version. So if you want to hear me sing to you, Mr. Kerr, you'll have to...
A personal situation. That was Mrs. Kerr being like, what are we doing today? That's why do we have all these activities on Sunday, which is Sunday once again, and we still have all these activities. Granted, one of them is my fault. I'm playing golf this afternoon, man, before I hit the road again. So
with half a calf, I like it. But look, I mean, any gentleman out there who's married understands that when the wife walks in during an important activity, it then becomes a personal situation.
That's fair enough. Yeah.
All right,
You need a
little
calf to play
housekeeping.
golf. I'm fine. No calves
No?
required.
Okay, well, good. As long as that's your plant leg, it should be fine.
Yeah.
All right, so a little housekeeping. Text us 571-293-6659. He is at Kerr Points on all those social media channels. I am at Pizza in Motion. TikTok still exists at time of recording, so Miles to Go podcast can be found on TikTok and on Instagram. And true to Mr. Kerr's recollection of it, I did make a vain attempt to play high school basketball, and in the midst of that troubling time period, also became a fan of the Detroit Pistons from back in the day. So I think you're all caught up, Mr. Kerr.
Well, if you want to talk about the history of the Detroit Pistons, I don't know if you know this, but Detroit's nickname is the Motor City, and they tend to make a lot of cars there.
Well, they used to, at least.
A piston is a part of an engine, Ed. It's a little thing that goes up and down inside the cylinders. And then they said, hey, we're going to have a basketball team here, which is a great American sport, founded by Dr. Naismith with the peach basket, as the story goes. And then, I'll skip the meat of it, but, we just decided to name it Detroit Pistons, just so everybody gets a little bit smarter here. Is that right?
I feel smart already. I feel smarter
so.
already being around you, Mr. Kerr.
I just exude that. I help other people around me. That's what I do.
Well, as we transition to one of our first topics, we do need to make sure that we loop back around and talk about the daddy-daughter dance, because you had breaking news in the first version when we recorded, where you shared with the audience that of all of the dads at the daddy-daughter dance, you were voted a very special category, Mr. Kerr.
The daughters named me the best dad dancer that was there at the dance last night. And it was because all the other dads were, being a little shy and not really wanting. I was like, I don't care what you guys think about this. And me and Mary went out there and we did the twirls, we did the lifts, we did the dips, and then all the other girls right in front of their dads. So I won again, rival dads. I'm sorry about that, but made all the other girls go up to their dads and say, see what he's doing? Do that with me. And I was like, that's right, boys, get out here. Let's go. And walking in the door to Emily, unprompted, Mary in front of Emily going, Dad, where did you learn how to dance like that? And Emily's like, he doesn't know how to dance. What is it? And I was like, no. For daddy-daughter 8-year-old girl dance, I dominated. Let's just be clear about that.
I love it. I love it. And yes, your wife is now wondering where you learned to dance.
Yeah. She's like, he doesn't know how to dance.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, on the subject of dad-daughters, my daughter is a little bit older, and she's sort of been going back and forth on what to do with her summer. So, as you know, we grabbed some of those really awesome Virgin Atlantic Award fairs. So we've got London planned. We'll go visit family up in Nova Scotia, as we do pretty much every summer. But she was trying to decide on whether she wanted to do a mission trip or she wanted to do just a trip somewhere with Dad, places that she hadn't been. And she's going to study abroad next year. And so I think she's also going to link a mission trip to the study abroad time. And so she's just decided that she wants to, she wants to do a trip with me once school is out. And she gave me a list of destinations, and each destination she's got, I'm looking at this list. There's probably 5 or 6 things that she wants to do in each place, but it's a very eclectic list of destinations. And I wanted to get your opinion. And this will be our poll question for this week, sponsored by the good folks at Points Path. Logo right up there. So if you want to shoot your favorite choices and help me decide where to take my daughter this summer, you'll also be eligible to win a Points Pass subscription. So, Mr. Kerr, here's the list. And like I said, it's a very eclectic list. It starts with Romania.
Okay.
Then we move to Laos.
Okay.
Bolivia.
Yeah.
Amsterdam.
Okay.
New Orleans.
New Orleans or Laos. Okay.
Copenhagen.
Gonna have to have a talk with Kat about this list.
And Peru. So there's your list. Romania, Laos, Bolivia, Amsterdam, New Orleans, Copenhagen, Peru. And when you think about the geography, gonna be tough to score more than probably 2 of any on these lists. I guess you could probably try to string together Amsterdam, Copenhagen, and Romania. But outside of that, I think this is going to be a 2-stop trip for her list.
I am trying to get to Romania, believe it or not. I have an amazing contractor in the day job who has just kind of become the de facto built travel points engineering expert, and he lives in Romania. And I've been working with him now for almost 4 years, and I keep telling him, man, I'm going to come out to Romania. So I did a little research about the city he lives in, which is the second biggest city in Romania, which I'd obviously never heard of before.
If you had heard the second biggest city in Romania, I would be very impressed.
It just looks like I have always been intrigued by the Eastern Bloc. I had a few trips planned over time to go through Serbia and check out the Eastern Bloc. It just looks like a lot going on over there, man. So I am partial to Romania, and you can definitely do a stop over in Amsterdam. I'm sure KLM has a nonstop flight from Amsterdam to Romania. And string those two together. That sounds like an awesome trip. So that's where I'm going.
Yeah, I think it would be, to your point, I think if we were going to try to tackle the European part of the list, because the other way, I think it's possible to tackle Bolivia and Peru, but I've never been to South America. So that's number one. And so I obviously would love to do it, but B, I don't really have to look at the flights. The countries are adjacent to each other, but I don't really know the connectivity in South America the way I know the connectivity in Europe. And like in Europe, Romania, as you point out, is Eastern Europe, and there's probably a decent handful of flights to get from other places. Amsterdam and Copenhagen both have major airlines in them, so would imagine that I can get to probably at least Bucharest, if not someplace else in Romania, and explore. So, but I'm torn because I'd love to notch a true South America trip as well.
Just a very, very weird coincidence, but our mutual friend Michelle from LAX Luxury last week did a Bolivia-Peru itinerary.
Oh, all right, I got to talk to Michelle. All right,
and now
we have an excuse to get her on the show.
The main point being, I've always known that like Central America and Northern South America flight connectivity are really awful times. Like if you ever look at Copa itineraries through Panama City, it's usually a pretty long layover followed by like a 1 a.m. or a 2 a.m. departure. Yeah, she just confirmed all of this. She every one of her flights was leaving from like Bolivia to Peru at like 2 a.m. and she just had to find day rooms everywhere she went. Yeah, and it just sounds pretty miserable to try and pack all that in there. And I just wondered, like, I'm sure there's some aviation geeks that can explain to us why that connectivity in those times for flying in that region of the world are so awful. But back in the day when you would search United and anything to South America was going through Panama City on the Copa 737 long hauls, and like you would fly a 737 from like New York to Panama City, have an 11-hour layover, and then leave from Panama City for Brazil at 2 a.m. on a 737 on another 5. It's just like, oh man, I don't. Whew, rough. So you can do it, but just, spread it out and give yourself lots of time.
Yeah.
But her trip did look awesome, man. She did like those salt flats in Bolivia, and then she went through nobody kill me if you're south, but like La Paz in Peru. La Paz?
I think it's pronounced La Paz, yeah.
Yeah. It had like, La Paz, Bolivia. It was super interesting what she did. So I think that would also be an awesome trip if you can figure out the connectivity.
Yeah, I tend to agree. So those are on my list. If you're watching or listening and you have opinions, do we tackle South America and try and knock out Bolivia and Peru, or do we go hit Europe? And I've done Copenhagen and Amsterdam, never been to Romania. as far as I know, we did do Amsterdam. Daughter did Amsterdam with us, but she's young. She's probably 5 or 6 years old. So definitely would be a different trip at her current age. All right, Mr. Kerr. Next up, I need to explain to you what the verb is about getting masqueraded, because it didn't sound like you knew that when we talked about that when we recorded the first time.
You started saying weird things about what's going on in your basement, and then you wanted to get masqueraded, and I got a little uncomfortable in trying to keep this PG-13 podcast. So please explain to us what exactly happened.
You just got a little uncomfortable?
As far as you go, it takes a lot to get me uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, I feel like I'm gonna tell on ourselves a little bit here, Ed. But you know those memes that's like people die and they go to the gates of heaven and they have Jesus standing there with your group text and being like, "Hey man, what's that's if people saw the Kerr pizza text, they'd be like, I don't know, man, maybe."
Yeah, I would agree that the group text would definitely put me in the running for being the bus driver on the bus to hell, no question. But I will say, while I was familiar with the general topic, I actually didn't even know what getting masqueraded meant as a verb until Slack member Dan defined it for me. And as soon as he said it, it made 100% sense. So the pinnacle of luxury in Las Vegas is not the Rio.
No?
But the
Really?
Rio has drastically improved what they have to offer as part of the Hyatt program. And I had to be in Vegas, very short trip this week, 2 nights, like got in at midnight the first night, flew out early the second day, the whole bit. Rates were unbelievable. So I now do believe I hold the record for anybody in our Slack community. I paid over $300 a night to stay at the Rio because pretty much everything on the strip was sold out. No real massive conventions, just a whole bunch of them. But anyway, getting masqueraded means there's 2 towers at the Rio. The main tower is the Ipanema Tower, and those rooms are, for the most part, renovated. The Masquerade Tower, however, has not been renovated and really does show its age and overall quality, if you will. And so when I told Dan that I got moved to a Masquerade room for my $300+ rate, he's like, "Oh, I got masqueraded last week." So that's where our new verb is, and I can certainly say that while I believe the regular rooms at the Rio are a decent experience, especially for the price. I mean, the AAA rate sometimes can be $20 a night. At $300 a night, adding salt to the wound was getting a masquerade room with all of the wonder that came with.
I mean, I know the verb like to go and masquerade as somebody else, so now I can connect the two. I didn't know the names of the Rio Towers. I have not had the unbelievable pinnacle of hotel stay experience to be able to say I've stayed at the Rio before. Certainly looked at it out of the window from my other Las Vegas hotels. But can't believe the strip was sold out. I have to head to New York City this week. I was trying to book a hotel last night, and most of New York City, man, like there's like only 3 Hyatts left that have a room, and 2 of those were on guaranteed globalist availability. I have no idea what's going on.
What's a globalist guarantee rate right now in New York?
I tell you, man, I was impressed. At the Hyatt Grand Central, it was $315 a night, which yeah, I was like, what? So when I clicked
that seems broken, yeah.
When I looked at the rates and I saw everything was $1 million, and then I saw the Hyatt Grand Central for $315. I was like, oh, they still got like some base rooms left. This is weird. And I clicked on it, said guaranteed availability. I was like, whoa, this should be like at least $500.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on with travel. Maybe last week and this week spring has sprung here in March or what, but New York looks pretty sold out. But, Delta's keeping that foot on the throttle with their pricing from Atlanta to New York economy flights, just a quick $500 each way in the back of the bus. No big deal. It's unbelievable, man. Like,
oh man, that's crazy. Yeah. That is crazy. All right. Well, now that you know what Masquerade is, let's dig into some of our topics. Let's start with the Hyatt Award category changes, because you and I haven't discussed these at all. There's been a pretty robust discussion going on in the Slack group about it. As a brief aside, if you want to support the show, spend a few bucks a month. You'll find some links in the show notes. We have a bunch of different categories, channels in Slack where experts like Mr. Kerr and I answer your questions. A lot of folks helping each other out. And we try to do weekly happy hours on Zoom, and we've got some meetups that I need to get scheduled once things settle down at home here with my dad and knee surgery and all that fun stuff. So I'm curious what your thoughts were on the Hyatt category changes this year. You and I haven't had a chance to talk about them.
Yeah, it's like overall 33 properties are going down, and how many are going up, Ed? If 33 are going down, surely it's a proportion amount going up.
No, of course, yeah, proportionate. But which proportion?
118 are going up. I think the biggest losses here that I always look at first are what can you no longer use a category 1 to 4 certificate at. Some big losses here. the Hyatt Regency Orlando Airport, rest RIP. This has been, shout out to our fellas down there who, for many of us, it's been a quick night in or out before all of our
Yeah.
Disney trips. Can no longer use that. The Hyatt Regency Paris Etoile, which is one I think you and I both stayed at,
Yeah.
are done. Most of the Tokyo hotels are all going up. I mean, Hyatt Regency Tokyo no longer Category 4. Look, that hotel is perfectly fine, not in a particularly convenient location and not particularly fantastic. So the fact that that's no longer 1 to 4, that's rough. And then here locally, the Thompson Atlanta Buckhead, the newest Hyatt in Atlanta, no longer Category 1 to 4, which, fair enough. So, man, I think people overall were saying that this wasn't too bad this year. It's just always a bummer every time, right? The Hyatt Regency Orlando Airport hits hard. I think the Andes Papagayo going to a Category 8, like that hotel, while it's a great stay, like they've just, number one, the ownership has obviously, in my opinion, never been a fan of World of Hyatt. They've played award availability games since they were since inception. Always hard to find nights, and now going up to Category 8, like I don't know, man. I don't know about that. So it's been a year. These changes come and go. Did any of the properties going down strike you as a good deal? Have you had looked through there?
So Hyatt Regency Maui going down, I thought was a solid one. I thought that was helpful. I haven't been to Park Hyatt Doha, but I've heard good things about it, so that was on my radar. Again, that's not going to appeal to a ton of folks that are listening.
But you can use a Category 1 to 4 certificate at the Park Hyatt Doha now. It is going down to Category 4, so that's very interesting. I have to check that out one day, hopefully.
Yeah, and I noticed a hotel that I wasn't super familiar with, Hotel Figueroa in LA, going from Category 5 to Category 4. I've never stayed there, and I don't stay in LA very often. If I'm going to LA, it's usually to go to Anaheim or drive somewhere outside of town, as opposed to being in LA proper, Burbank, stuff like that. So a couple of things interesting going down, but as far as the going up stuff, here's the only real problem I had. Like some of this stuff I get, like Andaz Amsterdam, like that's a really nice property. So like I kind of understand it going from a Category 6 to Category 7. But the Tokyo stuff caught me off guard because how cheap it is to be in Tokyo right now, with the conversion rate, stuff like that. So it just, I don't know. I mean,
it's got to be part of the problem, right? Like if everybody's using their, I imagine, based on we've talked about almost every episode, Tokyo's so hot right now. Everybody's trying to go there. A lot of people redeeming free nights at the Hyatt Tokyos, and if their average daily rates are down and they're not getting reimbursed, what they hoped, and they're like, well, then we're going up, so we can
I guess in my head I always sort of felt like the categories were tied loosely to what those hotels commanded for ADR, and I know that's not the only calculation, to be sure, and I think this list illustrates it's not just ADR, because the average daily rate in Tokyo has got to be down historically rather than up. So the only other one here that I think stings a little bit is Grand Hyatt SFO, because that's a property that I use. We've used it coming back from Asia. We've used it coming back from Hawaii. It's a great stopover hotel, and so that goes from a Category 5 to a Category 6. Not great news. Definitely would enjoy. Like I would stay at Hyatt Regency Maui again. I think they took really good care of us when we were there. So definitely would love the drop-in category there. But for the most part, these are these are going to hurt a little bit.
I think the get hit pretty hard. Some of these all-inclusives going from 30 to 40,000 points per night. That can obviously hit your point balance pretty hard. The other thing, man, it's just when I look through all these, there are so many brands of World of Hyatt now. Like I remember when it used to be easy to rattle off, the 12, 15-ish brands that were there. Now with all these acquisitions, and you got the different award charts, and you got the Category 8s, and then you have the ones that are not on Category 8s, and then you get the Mr. and Miss Smith, and you got the all-inclusives, and I can't remember all the all-inclusive brands now. They just bought, I think 3 weeks ago, they bought another all-inclusive brand. It's a lot to keep track of. You got the standards coming online. The first standards online now in New York City, the Manor. Although it's part of the Unbound collection, not a standard. So I'm a little confused on that. It's incredibly expensive. It's, next week, $1,200 a night. And the rest of the standards are not on. It's a lot to keep track of now, man, inside that program. And kind of the fractures of the different award charts. So it just reminded me again when I was looking through all the changes and saw, and the all-inclusive charts went up, and you got the ultimate free night. The ultimate free night only still good for 6 months, right? Is that
Well, still only good for 6 months. I will say I was impressed because I used Ultimate Free Night for my wife's second round at Miraval, and she still, as the folks in Slack keep reminding me, she still owes us a drive-by to talk about Miraval. But Ultimate Free Night does two things. Oh, sorry, go ahead. What?
No, it just reminds me, my last 100 Night Choice Award, I have until the end of this week. I have it on my calendar to pick.
Yeah.
And the reason I waited until the end of this week is so I get those 6 months starting this week.
100%.
Yeah.
That's a big thing Hyatt needs to change for these more, significantly more valuable awards. Because that Ultimate Free Night, I was able to use it at Miraval Austin. And unlike the Miraval Free Night certificates, the Ultimate Free Night also gives you the I think it's 175 per person in credits to use at Miraval. So, 50,000 points a night, let's say, something like that for the room, plus $350 in spa credits for my Ultimate Free Night. Great value, but only 6 months to use it. So, but yeah, Hyatt, the chart has definitely gotten more confusing. I look at it as a glass half full sort of thing because it gives us more opportunities to redeem points. I agree with you though. I think it's hard at this point to use a good number of the all-in properties, all the all-inclusives. I remember back in the day when Ziva and Zilara, launched, and there were some really affordable options there for families. And there definitely still are some, really affordable options near the bottom of the all-inclusive chart, but the chart does seem to be top-heavy.
Yep. Still the most valuable point that's out there, I think, between airlines and hotels, but it would cost you more at 118 properties starting March 25th. That's the key point. You have until March 25th to book before those price increases take effect. So take a look and make sure you lock any of those stays in that you want before that day.
100%. And still very thankful that Hyatt chooses to do this every year and give us notification before they raise prices. As you and I both know, this has become sort of a dying breed that we get notification before there are increases. So. As I mentioned earlier, I did have a brief stop in Las Vegas this week, which leads to our listener question and then a real brief review of the Capital One Lounge in Las Vegas. So first up, Serena emailed us, "Hi, Ed, I'm a big fan of you and Richard and the Miles to Go podcast." Well, thank you for that. "My husband and I are departing Vegas tomorrow morning, and we're thinking about going to the Capital One Lounge. Our flights depart out of Terminal 1, and I was curious to know whether it's possible to go over to the Capital One Lounge in Terminal 3 after passing through security, without having to pass through security a second time." She also goes on to say hi to Mr. Kerr. So, hi, Mr. Kerr. So for folks who don't navigate Vegas frequently, yes, whether you clear security in Terminal 1 or Terminal 3, it's possible to get to any of the other concourses. So Terminal 1 is Southwest, Spirit, Frontier, stuff like that. And that's the A, B, and C concourses. But when you get through security, if you go through the main security entrance by the C concourse, you can just hop on the train to D, which is where the Capital One Lounge is. Similarly, if you go through Terminal 3 security, you can take the train to D and then take the train back to C. A little bit of a backwards way, but easy to get around all the different places. No, everything's behind security. I gotta be honest, Richard, I was a little disappointed in the Capital One Lounge in Las Vegas. I didn't have a ton of time there. Typical Capital One Lounge things, upgraded food offerings for sure, upgraded drink offerings at the bar, the whole bit. Probably the disappointing part, though, was the food. And this one was a little surprising to me because most of the seats were full. Maybe they had too many choices. I don't know, but I grabbed two different food items, and both of them I found they were hot dishes. They weren't super hot. And the pasta I had was like really rubbery, like it had been laying out for quite some time. So the food quality was definitely a miss, and maybe that's just sort of like opening week jitters because they've only been open like a week, 10 days, something like that. But the Capital One Lounge in Dulles opened up with really, really good food, so I was definitely surprised the food quality was poor. Only other thing I'd say about the lounge, most of the seats were already full, and I had a later flight out at like a 4:00 flight, and as you know, Vegas sort of clears out in the afternoon and evenings. There's some stuff, California flights, things like that, but the last flights to anywhere sort of Mississippi or east leave at 2:00. So by 4:00, the airport's, pretty quiet. Most of the seats in the Cap One Lounge were taken. And part of that is they've got some nicer, I don't know, really recliners, but comfortable chairs along the window line of the club. But they're paired up in twos with a cocktail table between them. And most people drop down in one seat and put their bag on the other, effectively reducing the capacity of the best seats in the lounge by about 50%. So they got, a little bit of work to do to fiddle with some things. Overall, nice to have another place, but I don't know. I was a little bit underwhelmed.
I did that first Dulles visit just earlier this year after I saw you, and that is the weirdest lounge setup in the world, man, with all those steps. I don't know. I don't know about that one. So if you're from a physical layout standpoint, what is better, Vegas or Dulles?
Well, the layout's great in Vegas because it's a big, wide open space and, sizable bar, all that. So it's easy to get around for sure. And plenty of bathrooms. They actually have some work rooms, which I think is really helpful. So, quiet work closet with solid door, the whole bit. So, I definitely think there are pluses to having the lounge for sure.
I should be in Vegas later this year for more conference time, so I look forward to checking it out with my Venture X card.
Well, you should let me know because I do go to Vegas occasionally. So if you are headed to Vegas, let me know and I'll try to meet you there.
I will do that.
Nice. I like that. All right, so let's wrap up. You got time for one more topic, and you, Mr. Kerr, you get to choose where we go. Actually, I think we should probably talk about Aeroplan for sure, and then maybe we'll see if we can squeeze in time to talk about the New England Patriots or American Airlines Wi-Fi. What do you think?
Yeah, we should talk about the Patriots plane, but let's cover the restart of Aeroplan family pooling.
Yeah, were you a family pooler with Aeroplan before they shut it down?
No, because there was no reason for Mrs. Kerr or the kids to have earned Aeroplan points, so I was not a participant before they closed it down the first time.
Yeah, me neither. And so what I wasn't sure with the close down, and we'll have to reach out to Aeroplan and ask him, was if they close off access to family plans again, if you're signed up, can you add members to existing plans? That's probably the one question that I have. So family sharing, I think they've redefined their definition of family. It was very, very open when they first launched family planning, and now the definition is more narrowly defined. Though I don't know how much enforcement there is on spouses, partners, children, siblings, in-laws, things like that. But the benefit here to family sharing is when your family, like take the Kerr family as an example. If the four of you had to go fly somewhere and you bought Aeroplan tickets, and now you've got a small amount of points orphaned in an account for your wife and your two kids, you can now pool all those together with Aeroplan family sharing. As well, you could take somebody who flies Aeroplan a bunch, has a bunch of points, and transfer them to, say, like my 18-year-old daughter who wants to go take a trip. So definitely see a lot of value in family sharing as a whole, just holistically. To your point specifically, I haven't had a lot of use for it yet, though I'm guessing as my kids are getting to that age that I probably will have more use for it going forward. So, would you think about this for extended family?
I mean, sure, but again, the likelihood of my family all collecting Aeroplan points, I just don't know when that's going to happen anytime in the next, call it 5 years conservatively. Original launched in 2020, they closed it down in 2023. Basically, everybody assumes because of wide-scale fraud. It is open again. Here are the quick highlights. It's open. Up to 8 verified family members can join to share points together. Pool all the points that you earn together. Members must be a part of the program for 6 months before you can join a pool. They must stay in a pool for at least 3 months, and they could not have been in another pool in the past 6 months. So this is basically, you can't just go create a new Aeroplan account today and then flush points to it, combine, and try it. Like, it cuts out a lot of the fraud. Family sharing is open to spouses, partners, children, siblings, in-laws, parents, and grandparents. And then kind of the last point that's new here, as far as I understand, is in some cases, additional identity verification steps are required to provide extra protection against unauthorized use under the terms. So looks like they've taken a lot of steps here to mitigate the fraud that I'm sure ate them up a little bit there. But, any of the programs that allow family pooling is fantastic if you do have, so you don't have those little minor orphan balances out there. I think JetBlue was the first to bring this on the scene several years ago and can still do it there. So pretty cool to see here. And again, there's no such thing as too many Aeroplan points. So I hope if everybody is able to take advantage or needs to, that you do participate in this program.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd say that you didn't touch on, all those things that you mentioned were important details to know. The other thing too is that depending on how you move points around the different accounts, the individual accounts still have expiration dates on them. So you've got to have activity every 18 months in the account. It's not hard to have activity in these things, whether it's buying something through Air Canada's e-store or something like that. But it's something to be aware of, because just because you're linked to, so like United's version of this, I don't believe has that restriction as of yet, at least, where if the kids were linked to me, their individual points, don't have any expiration issues, if you will. So just something to be aware of. You wouldn't want to lose points for expiration. I think we've all been there before. I have my fair share of moments early on in the points and miles world where I let points expire and cried a little bit.
So I have 70,000 Singapore miles expiring this month, and you cannot extend them. They have a fixed expiration date. This is from a transfer I did many, many moons ago. Was supposed to be used for something in true Kerr fashion. Had to cancel at the last minute. Where are you what are you speculatively booking with these 70,000 miles before they disappear?
Oh, I'm probably booking the European flight that I tried to fly with Julian right before COVID and had my Singapore miles expire on.
The old JFK to Frankfurt route, or vice versa. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I just used it. The award availability is pretty decent on it. My business partner had to be in Europe, and we booked him and his kids. We were able to get 4 seats for, and don't quote me on this, but I want to say like 70,000, 80,000 Singapore miles. And then at the last minute, he had a medical issue, and I was able to find up to 6 seats for the following day. So at least my recent experiences looking for Singapore inventory looked solid.
Nice. Yeah, the only problem is if I'm in Frankfurt, I now have 120,000 life miles to fly Lufthansa first class rather than Singapore. So
maybe you fly over in Singapore and you fly back in Lufthansa first.
I just got to find an excuse to need to fly in and out of Frankfurt now, and then I don't need to go to Frankfurt for any reason, but not far from there to anywhere else in Europe. You got to go. So
exactly, you can join us in Romania.
Crimea River, everybody.
Yeah, you can come over and join me in Romania with your Singapore miles.
I need to do that. Shout out to Adrian, man. You guys, if you need an engineer, he's the best. You can't have him, but maybe one day I'll refer him to you.
If you need an engineer, don't take mine.
If you need, he knows everything there is to know about transfer. He's just the best. So shout out to Adrian there in Romania.
All right, Mr. Kerr, why don't you lead us through why the losers of the 42nd and 46th Super Bowls are unhappy with their airplane?
Yeah, one of my favorite times every spring, right around the time that they're doing the combine right now, which is where the prospective people from college who are going to become NFL players going to work out. The NFL Players Association publishes an annual report where team members rank their team in 11 categories like facilities, ownership, nutrition, travel, and basically the Players Association says, hey, these are the best teams in the league that take care of us. These are the worst teams. The New England Patriots last year ranked number 29 out of 32 teams. This year, Ed, they've done better. They're now ranked 31st out of 32 teams, and how well the organization takes care of them. And all these things, players rate them from A to F. And specifically call out this year was the Patriots 767 plane that they have, bought in 2017. Not new, very old plane. I think it's 30-plus years old. But their plane, which it does have a really cool paint job, it has their Super Bowl trophies on the tail. But apparently the players are not happy with this. So the basic summary is, where's the quote from the NFL? Here it is. Players want an upgraded team plane. The current plane is too small. There is no Wi-Fi available, and there are seats with ashtrays in the armrest. Players specifically responded that our plane is the worst thing, size, space, and safety, and it is not conducive to preparedness for athletic performance. So, no Wi-Fi, that stinks if you're an NFL player. Imagine, for these long, and they're in New England as well. So if you're playing, Seattle Seahawks, Los Angeles Chargers, Arizona, like there's pretty long flights that you got to do there. I find it hard to believe how, a 767 is too small. You got 55 players on the roster and then a myriad of support staff, but unless they mean that the plane is still all economy seating, and if you're a 6'8" offensive lineman, then I imagine you're not pretty comfortable unless you got a pretty big seat on the plane. Ashtrays in the armrest, that's just saying it's old. That doesn't actually affect anything about the plane. But the safety thing called out, man, that caught my attention. And as well as a lot of people that covered it. I'm curious what, there's something that made them feel unsafe about this plane. But hey, man, if you're spending all that money to buy a 767 with custom livery, what are you doing to make that plane better? And they go through some of the articles, give examples of what other planes are doing, some luxury Atlas Air things that other teams are chartering out, wide bodies. If you're the New England Patriots, what are you doing to better the situation for your players?
Yeah, and I thought, I could be remembering it wrong, and I should have looked for this before we started recording, but I thought they had another plane at one point, and I thought something happened to it. So I wonder if maybe that's part of what the issue is here, because I thought they had multiple charters at one point, and maybe either they retired one or there was not an accident, but something happened to one of them. But
They
um,
do have two. You're right. I remember that now. I just looked it up. There are two 767s named Aircraft,
yeah,
Kraft, after Mr.
yeah.
Kraft, the owner of the Patriots.
I wonder if maybe like one of them's updated, one of them's not. Because I remember when this first became a thing, like you said, 2017, 2018, something like that. When they showed video of the inside of the plane, like the business class seats were nice seats, and I thought there were a bunch of them, enough that all the players could have one. So I wonder if this is some sort of a, the other one has an issue and they haven't updated this one, or something of that nature. I think when they first did this, it sounded maybe cool is the right way to say it in quotation marks. I can't necessarily say I thought it was smart at the time for for the reasons that, like, some of the stuff that you cite. I mean, you think about like what Wi-Fi costs to add to a plane. I mean, you're talking. I mean, I wish we had Seth on because he could probably just rattle off the numbers. But I mean, it's probably a few $100,000 to add Wi-Fi to a 767. That's a
Yeah.
hard thing to make money on when you're going to use it 16 times a year, 18 times a year, something like that.
Well, they charter
So
it out the rest of the time. It's a charter business, and they do charter the plane out. But to your point, like throw a Starlink thing up there, and if you're a professional football organization, the NFL, you can probably afford a few $100,000 expense to take care of
well,
that.
yeah, I would think, like, the other thing I've heard about the Starlink installs is that they're really quick, so you can have the plane out of sequence for like a day or something like that. So that should be easy to do with the charter, like you said. So that one seems like an easy fix. I think we probably got to dig into this one a little bit more and see if they still fly both of the charters, because I really feel like something happened to one of them. So maybe they haven't taken this one out to do the sort of refurbs it needs.
According to a 2024 article, so not sure if it's still up to date, but the charter operator for the New England Patriots aircraft is Eastern Airlines, which has come and gone several times in history, and is now still. I think I've read several articles and heard some new nerdy people talk about Eastern coming back. So I wonder if that's still the case. We'll have to find out here. But good looking airplane. The two of them, if you want to go and just Google that real quick and see pictures of them, they look nice from the outside.
Well, I'm closed with a little bit of raw meat for Mr. Kerr. I remember the first iteration of Eastern. That's how old I am, Mr. Kerr. And I remember we were flying a connecting flight from New York, and I'm not going to remember the connecting city. I mean, I have to look at the maps, but my guess is probably like DC or Raleigh or Charlotte or something like that. And what I can remember, Mr. Kerr, was we were on our way to a cruise as a family. And I remember that we had a delay, and we landed in whatever connecting airport we were landing in. And we were running late, obviously, because of the delay. We weren't going to make our plane, might miss our cruise. And they drove us across the tarmac in an old woody panel station wagon.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There's actually a huge Eastern Airlines plaque memorial in the Atlanta Airport North Terminal right next to the American check-in desk. It's a very nice, huge bronze plaque that's on the wall. It has like a list of all the pilots, it looks like, that flew for Eastern, assuming that Atlanta was a major hub for Eastern back in the day.
Oh, maybe it was Atlanta. Yeah.
I've stopped and looked at it a few times, but apparently, one of those massive operations back a few decades ago.
Atlanta Airport, one of the most popular airports to live in for a week, Mr. Kerr.
I know. Yeah, if you guys didn't see the Built rent-free answers, all of the Built members that answered this picked Atlanta as one of the top 3 airports in the world that they would want to live in for a year. And it's like, obviously, you guys have never been to Doha, Dubai, Singapore. Like, I don't understand how it's Atlanta, who has one quote-unquote luxury lounge that can't pass a health inspection score. People want to live there for a year. I don't understand that one.
Yeah, I would just say we talk fondly about Built and Built members on the show on a frequent basis. This is one of those rare times where I'm going to say that if you voted for Atlanta as the airport that you wanted to live in for a week, I have serious questions about so many things.
Yeah, don't come here. We're crowded enough. Go somewhere else. Get out. We're crowded.
All right, Mr. Kerr, so you're taking the train to New York City this week, huh?
Got a Delta A220 tomorrow up to Newark, so all the way row 32. I'm excited about it.
There's 32 rows on A220, so you're cleared. You are cleared for travel with the clock.
Cleared for travel on the blood thinners,
Nice.
compression socks, well hydrated, get up and move every hour, and I should be fine.
Nice.
The doctor
Nice.
says.
Nice. All right.
Off
Well,
we
I'm
go.
excited to hear. Excited to hear you're back in the game. I'm excited for you to have a guarantee rate in New York City at the Grand Hyatt. That's gonna be a beautiful thing.
Here we go. Off again into the wild blue yonder.
Into the wild blue yonder we go. I'm still not sure if I'm traveling this week. I've got a couple fun trips coming up. I've got Disneyland coming up in March, and potentially seems like we'll actually be going to Tokyo now that I have flights to and from Taipei for our April trip. Haven't really figured out much else other than that, but I have Seattle to
We'll be
Taipei.
going to Tokyo now that we have flights to Taipei.
Yeah, right.
It only makes
That's most
sense to
people.
listeners of this podcast. Everybody else will be like, what? Wrong country.
Yeah, wrong country. It's only 4 hours between the two, but there are
close enough.
yeah. There are a number of fun airlines that I have not flown that fly between Taipei and Tokyo. I'm thinking about Peach as one of the ones.
I was
that's on
about to
there.
say, is Peach still flying? I remember when Peach came into existence during my time in Tokyo. Yep.
Yep, Peach still exists. They seem to have some pretty affordable flights between Taipei and Tokyo, which means that my knees will probably be rubbing the seat in front of me, and I'll probably be paying for my bag.
Yep, that's for sure.
We got a lot more coming up, Mr. Kerr, to talk through. I'm definitely thankful to hear that you are on the mend and back out on the road. I hope you enjoy the golf today, and I hope that your A220 flight is as enjoyable as it can be from row 32. All that and a whole lot more, Mr. Kerr, until we upload again. We've got miles to go.
Everybody gets a little bit smarter here. I just exude that. I help other people around me. That's what I do.